Welcome to the Self-Reflections podcast. I'm your host, Claudia Gebert. Today we have a privilege of diving into the remarkable journey of Dr. Marian Dover, a physician whose life story is a testament of resilience, gratitude, and the transformative power of embracing diversity. Dr. Dover's upbringing in a third world country laid the foundation of her unwavering commitment to service and compassion. From navigating the challenges of her childhood to embarking on a career in medicine, her experiences have shaped her into the extraordinary healer she is today. In this episode, Dr. Dover generalistly shares insights into her multifaceted medical practice, spanning emergency, medicine, obstetrics, surgery, and general practice. Through captivating anecdotes and profound reflections, she offers a glimpse into the highs and lows of her journey, illustrating the profound impact of human connection and empathy in the field of medicine. Join us as we explore Dr. Dover's unique perspective on maintaining positivity and gratitude in the face of adversity, her strategies for navigating career uncertainties, and her invaluable advice for aspiring medical professionals, as well as others in other industries. Get ready to be inspired by her wisdom, resilience, and unwavering dedication to healing. Welcome to Self-Reflections. I'm your host, Claudia Gebert. Today I am greeted by the lovely Dr. Marian Dover. I cannot wait to start today's podcast with you. Marian, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Firstly, I want to discuss a little bit about who you are as an individual, what made you gravitate to share your story on the Self-Reflections podcast. And from there, we can definitely explore everything there is to your story. So can you share with us a little bit of insights of who you are and we'll go from there.
Great. Well, yeah, it's a real honor to be here. Thank you for having me. I think I gravitated to this podcast because of your positivity and your energy. And I think a lot of, with the story that I'm going to share with you, I think a lot of my life purpose is around sort of uplifting people and, increasing that positivity for people that don't believe in their potential. So I'm a rural generalist, and basically that's a doctor that's, few and far between these days, unfortunately. But I work across general practice and obstetrics, delivering babies, and emergency. And yeah, I think, my life story starts sort of in a third world country, born in Egypt. Parents migrated to Australia for, various reasons around religious persecution back home. And incredibly grateful. I guess a lot of, my story is around just how lucky I am to be where I am today and the opportunities that have been afforded to me. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. Marian, how old were you when your family migrated to Australia, and did they come straight from Egypt to Australia?
They did. So we, I was 8 years old. My parents sort of went through a lot of barriers, a lot of, obstruction through their path because we had a name that identified what religious background we are. And so, my parents decided that they were going to migrate to a country where their children had better opportunities. And I'm forever grateful because there's no way that I'd be doing the work that I'm doing today unless I was here. So there's a lot of gratitude that comes with that. And yeah, it just means that I hopefully don't take things for granted otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And that would have been quite a challenging time for the whole family, not only having to uplift where your parents grew up to then move, you and it sounds like your siblings across to a brand new country. Do you remember much of that time?
I remember it well. So I was in year 2 when we came here. I didn't speak a word of English. My parents had a little bit of English to sort of get by, to be able to fill out forms and, to get us established. We were homeless for several months before we sort of got into the welfare system and were able to sort of build ourselves up from there. But yeah, you can imagine my parents, particularly my mum, went through a lot of grief around their old life, having left everything there. The whole family and everyone, extended family is still there for, those who are still alive. So yeah, it was a massive shift. And, now being a mum and being a wife, I can't imagine doing the same thing, to have to sort of start from scratch in a new country. It's just made me appreciate even more how much they went through.
Absolutely. And coming from immigrant parents and well, an immigrant family myself, and moving across, they come across that, in such a young age, and they make such a big decision. And when you actually put yourself in their shoes, it's you can't fathom the bravery and courage that our parents had to endure, for different reasons, of course, to put their children first and try and create a life for them that is safe, that is filled with opportunity, and to actually be able to hear how you've been able to really, really beautifully connect to that gratitude of having that opportunity and making the most out of it is a beautiful testament to their sacrifice and hard work.
Thank you. I think so too. I think, when I met with obstruction, or when I met with challenges along the path, I always go back to the strength that it took for mum and dad to do what they did. And I think that spurred me on to sort of, take on the small obstacles that have come my way compared to what they've gone through.
Absolutely. How was those early years? You said you didn't know much English. So I remember, coming to Australia not knowing English myself. So having to start in the IOU class and really being able to kind of immerse myself in the English culture and Australian culture to be able to really expand on that. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, I think I was extremely lucky. I had very dedicated teachers going through primary school, teachers that sort of saw my potential, saw the strengths and the things that I was able to achieve. And, I remember very distinctly the nights that I would go home, and yes, there was a bit of bullying because I'm a bit different, but that's okay. But sitting down with mum at the end of the day, and we would literally sit with an English book and a dictionary that translated, Arabic to English and English to Arabic, and we'd slowly learn things together. So mum did some TAFE courses, and she, upskilled in things that she could do now. And yeah, I was able to sort of excel through schooling. And I think, a lot of the work ethic that my parents have carried across to me, which is really nice. And I hope that I can carry that across to my children as well. And just show them the value of hard work, because we're in a country where hard work is rewarded, unlike other places where they don't have that luxury.
Mm-hmm. And that's so beautiful to be able to have the support of, like you mentioned, mum, in times where you were struggling and you kind of felt supported in your experience of that, and were able to be guided through that in a way that actually helped you learn and grow, and probably also become the resilient person that you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's a lot of the memories are around, mum sort of went through it a fair bit because her mother passed away shortly after we arrived here, and she couldn't be there, which is always something that she's going to carry with her. But, she always tells us, that the amount of opportunity that me and my siblings have had through, coming here has energized her, and has sort of, confirmed their their reasons for moving here. And that's something that I think, I'm always going to be really grateful for.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How was the impact on dad and your other siblings?
Yeah, so dad probably went through a lot more challenges in Egypt before we moved here, and I think he was the one that sort of instigated the whole thing. So my dad was actually one of the top 10 mathematicians in Egypt before we migrated here, but because of the, some of the prejudices that happened there, he missed out on opportunities. He should have been invited to conferences in America and things like that. But there were lots of times where, I don't know whether it happened accidentally or whether it was on purpose, Dad would just miss out on opportunities. And he was the reason that we migrated here. But yeah, also for Dad, going from being a mathematician and someone who was, quite accomplished back home, he, not having much of the English language, had to start again, and he's never been able to go back to teaching, unfortunately. But again, Mum and Dad always say, what me and I've got a sister. We lost two brothers, unfortunately. But we do give mum and dad that hope that, their life has produced something wonderful, and they're always really happy about that and really proud of us.
Marian, to hear such a juxtaposition of gratitude and connection and support, to then also now hearing that there was an extreme loss in your family, not one but like two brothers. Do you mind sharing a little bit about when that happened and also how it impacted the family, if you feel comfortable?
So yeah, probably before I could remember. But mum obviously shares stories and tells us about them. But they were quite young. And yeah, I think it's just the conversations that I've had with mum that sort of bring that up again. But yeah, I never got to know them, but we always sort of, share what mum went through, and I think it's, they're still very much part of our family now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And to come from having such loss as a family unit to then making those decisions to then better your life for the other children, take my hat off to your parents to have gone through such loss, such significant decisions, and always having the priority of ensuring that the other children in the family are supported and cared for. That in itself is so hard to do when one themselves are going through grief and loss and challenge and rejection and setbacks. Wow, what a phenomenal story. Even just from what you've described your parents had to endure, and then how you were part of that experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, we all have we're that kind of family where, everyone's in everyone's business. We know exactly what each person has sort of done in the first few hours of the day. Mum and dad will call us at least, a couple of times a day and want to know everything that's happened in our day. But even with those little sort of annoyances and those peculiarities about us, when you think about the things that we've gone through, it is bonding, and we're a strong family, and we always support each other.
Mm-hmm. How were the schooling years for you as you were developing and growing up? How was that kind of early life experience for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, for me, it wasn't something that I would consider a difficult time. I think I was, remembering what school was like back in Egypt, remembering some of the ways that people made me feel back home compared to Australia. I think a lot of it is positive because of the comparison and that juxtaposition. So, back home in Egypt, I still remember, it was quite a strict place to learn. It was a place where, if you weren't performing to a particular standard, or even if you were and they just wanted to push you a bit harder, very different to being in Australia where, in a way, schooling here is a little bit more flexible. If you learned a different way, that was okay. Whereas in Egypt, the kids that weren't conforming to a particular way of learning and a particular way of behaving were punished quite severely. And it's I guess that comparison of what I've been able to do here and what I've been able to take part in, and being able to reach a potential that I think I wouldn't have been able to back home. It just means that basically all of my schooling here, I've only got positive things to say.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think when you reference the contrast again, it's that experience of trauma, not feeling safe, to then being able to create an environment here that you felt very comfortable in and you were able to grow and also flourish. I think that's so important when we look at individuals sometimes finding themselves stuck. A lot of it has to do with the environment externally that then is making your inner world unsafe and uncomfortable. So it's either going to stunt that growth, or it's actually then, depending on the environment, is then going to help and flourish that. So it sounds like it was very much a transition for you, and one that sounds like was actually quite welcoming once you developed yourself in Australia.
Yeah, I think, there's that saying that says, pain can either be your prison or it can be your platform. And I think, the things that I've seen across the years, even just, after I've started my career, there is so much pain in this world. There is so many people that go through really difficult things. And if the only thing you do as a human being through this life is to spread positivity and to make people feel worthy and make them feel loved, it's amazing how that attachment makes your, your own well-being improve as well. It's not just what you're giving. You get a lot from that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Marian, what motivated you to pursue a career in medicine, and how did you navigate the challenges of medical training?
Yeah, I think, there were certain health things that my own family went through. There was one member of my family who had a cancer diagnosis while I was going through high school. And, there were times when we had interactions with doctors that probably just displayed their burnout more than, the way that the consultation should have been conducted. And I remember at one point I turned to my dad after one consultation. I was like, Dad, I think I could do this. And Dad was like, yes, you can. I know that you can. He's always been so supportive. But yes, we do go through a lot of burnout in our career. Medicine is that type of career where we are exposed to a lot of trauma, and I think it's something that a lot of careers do share. Anyone who works in emergency services would understand that. But it's that type of career where you push that trauma aside because you have to go from one consultation where you're going to tell a mum that their child is going to die, and then you just have to move on to the next consultation where you're actually giving someone really good news. So we're almost taught, and it's almost ingrained, that we just have to push that trauma aside and keep going. And you do have to sort of draw on some of the really positive things that you've gone through your life to be able to continue.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you have worked in various areas of medicine. Would you mind sharing with us what areas you've worked with and what were some of the highlights, but also challenges in each of those?
Yeah, I had to update my CV not long ago, and I've worked out that I've worked in 16 different hospitals across New South Wales.
Wow.
And that's not including the hospitals that I trained in as a medical student. So I've gotten to see a fair bit of New South Wales and a lot of country New South Wales outside of Sydney, outside of the metropolitan centres. And it's been amazing perspective to be able to sort of compare how different places do things, compare the type of demographic of patient that you see as well. There's some places where I've worked where, a lot of people can afford more. They've had a different upbringing, and so the rest, I guess, the way that you conduct that consultation is very different to the one where you're meeting someone from, let's say, an underprivileged background who has probably had, exposure to domestic violence, drug and alcohol, all of that sort of thing. And the consultations are extremely different. And it's been, really valuable, I guess, a privilege to be able to sort of see those different upbringings and see those different backgrounds of people. And being someone who's had the experiences that I've had in Egypt, I think it's given me sort of that ability to be able to build rapport, to say, I know what it's like to have nothing. I know what it's like to, to go through loss. And I think a lot of the things that we're taught are around building that security and building that environment in the consultation for people to realize that you're safe here. We can talk about anything. I'm not going to do something that sort of affects that relationship. I do want you to tell me what you need, and I'm going to try and, do what I can to alleviate suffering. So it's been really good insight to be able to work with different people.
Mm-hmm. Out of the different areas you've worked in, which one's your favorite and why?
Yeah, I think I can probably blame my background for this, but I think, the places where I've worked where people don't sort of have, I shouldn't call it a sense of entitlement, but almost that expectation that I should be given everything that I want now. I think I relate to those people a lot better. But at the same time, people who come in and they're like, I need to have an answer and I need you to refer me for this and this and this, regardless of what you think, it does make you reflect on what upbringing they've had. Are they just sheltered or are they scared? Are they just scared because they haven't been in anything similar? And I think it's important to be able to take that step back and say, this is what that person has said. This is the attitude that I'm seeing, but what's behind that? What have they come from for them to be speaking this way? And it's one of the really important sort of perspectives to keep going through your journey in life, regardless of what career you do.
Absolutely. What's the difference working across the metropolitan areas or urban versus then a rural? How would you, what challenges would you see a difference between the few there?
Yeah, there's huge difference. They're almost worlds apart. So, when you work in the middle of a metropolitan area, you can refer someone, to see a cardiologist, for example, within a couple of weeks. But in the country, sometimes I am the only doctor who's in the town. So if someone's having a heart attack, you're it. Like you can probably arrange, emergency, retrieval, for example, but that takes time. It takes equipment. Sometimes it's not possible because of the weather. The helipad is wet and the weather's terrible. They can't actually take off. So, very different medicine. And I think it's been very fulfilling in that way because often if the doctor wasn't there, if I wasn't there, that person would have very different outcomes. And that's a huge privilege to be able to say, I've brought skills to this area where, they otherwise wouldn't have had a service.
Absolutely. And to actually, have all of that responsibility and pressure on you, that's a lot. How do you deal with that on a day-to-day basis?
It is a lot. And I think, one of the skills that you develop as you go through any type of career like this is you need to know what your threshold for burnout is. I've probably reached that threshold maybe once or twice. I've been probably quite lucky, and it's because I know the warning signs. I know that, once I get to a point where small things are annoying me that otherwise wouldn't have, once I go from, extreme stress of, oh my gosh, look how much I need to get through, to oh my gosh, this is not possible, I'm actually just going to start withdrawing. That's my threshold to say you need to step back. And I'm fortunate in that I've got advocacy and leadership roles that I can almost recoil back to instead of doing clinical work sometimes. And I have done that in the last couple of weeks. I'm going to, I went to a conference last weekend. I've got another conference next weekend. And that's my recoil. That's my take a step back. You actually need to just look after yourself and refuel, because if you're not here, the work can't continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Marian, you were mentioning earlier the stark contrast between even just in one day having really, really traumatic, horrific cases and then very, very positive cases thereafter. How do you maintain a positive outlook as you're flipping between something really traumatic and challenging and then something really positive?
Yeah, it's hard. I think, I'm not ashamed to say that I'm the type of doctor who will sit with patients and cry with them. That's not something I'm ashamed of. But, it's that connection. It's that, I guess that realization that, I know that you need something and I can't give it to you and I can't actually help, but I'm here to just hold you in this moment and actually just get through it with you. Me just being here is enough of an assistance, even if I can't get you the help that we actually need to get past this. And that connection with people refuels it. It gives you energy and it helps you to continue knowing that you're making a difference. I think if I worked in a job where, I wasn't valued or I didn't feel appreciated for the work that I would do, I think I would really struggle with that. But I'm really fortunate. I'm in a job where patients wait weeks to see me. Patients are really grateful. They, even if they don't say thank you, you know that you've made a difference. And that to me is enough.
And Marian, what you have highlighted there is such a beautiful, raw, ability for you to just show your human side to somebody else experiencing a human experience of hardship. And it's so rare to see sometimes in the medical industry, where it is very medical, very rigid, very rational, to sit in the emotion. Sometimes there's no time to, and we're not here putting blame in any way. We're just naming what sometimes happens. For you to actually acknowledge how important it is for somebody else to have that human connection in their experience is very beautiful in I can appreciate for you in your connection with your clients and patients, and vice versa. I do have many clients that come to me where they do share some horror stories, as we all have in all industries, where clients haven't been heard, or they feel devalued or invalidated or just dismissed. And to actually have someone to sit in that space and hear a patient and hear their story and actually believe them and hold that space is really invaluable in even them being able to access some form of positivity in their experience. So even just you highlighting that is really special.
Thank you. I think it's important to remember that in itself is therapy. There's a person that comes to you and, they're homeless and they can't afford to, get dinner next week, or they can't afford their rent and they're really stressed. I can't fix that, but I'm here to listen and I care. But yeah, I guess the other thing is to just remember, and I think you've mentioned this before, but to just remember that when you do see a doctor and they don't respond in a way that seems warm, it's because the system is working against us. We're working in a system that wants us to churn through as many people as possible. We don't have the time to sit with patients, unfortunately. We don't get, paid for some of these tasks, and it's demoralizing. It can be really difficult for a doctor going through burnout, and you can tell who's going through burnout by some of those interactions. And I think I mentioned, this part of my reason why I became a doctor, because I turned to Dad that one time and said, I think I can do a better job. But actually, if I was in that doctor's shoes, who knows what that doctor had gone through? Maybe they, we were the fourth or fifth person that afternoon that had the same news, and that's why it came across a little bit coldly. So yeah, I think it is helpful to remember that behind every response that you get from another human being, there is a journey that we don't know. There is a reason that they've responded and spoken to us this way, and it's not because they're narcissistic. It's not because they're horrible people. It's because their journey has caused this.
Mm-hmm. They're human too, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Mm-hmm. I encourage my clients to feel empowered that they can advocate for themselves. If they ever feel unheard or not supported or misunderstood, it's very much trying to get individuals to be able to hear themselves and speak up for themselves and believe themselves enough to then share that with the people that they are engaging in the professional setting, whether it is counselors, psychologists, coaches, GPs, specialists, in any way. Because sometimes the only person that really knows what's going on is us. And if we're able to verbalize that in a very clear, succinct way and create that relationship on a deeper level, sometimes it's okay to actually tell the person that you're seeing. And I encourage this with my clients: if I've gotten it wrong, tell me. If I've misunderstood something, challenge me, because that is the only way that a relationship can grow, that's going to be built on trust and openness. And I also appreciate how hard that is sometimes for clients to do when they're going through a lot and unable to advocate for themselves in such a vulnerable space when they are accessing specialist care of any kind.
Yeah, it's so important. And I think you've highlighted how amazing and a clinician you are, because, in many ways, when patients don't feel heard, and I think I see this the most when I'm doing obstetrics and we're delivering babies, because people come to us with their preconceived ideas of, for example, I've got my birth plan. This is what I want to happen. I don't want a cesarean section. I don't want certain things. And taking the time to say, tell me a little bit about your fears. What is it about going through this that makes it unpleasant for you? tell me about what you know about what can happen during labor that we might have to intervene for, because there is a lot of misinformation online as to, there's influencers on social media who will tell you, doctors are out to intervene and to do things that are unnecessary, and there's obstetric violence and stuff like that. And it's really insightful in a way to sort of take that step back as a clinician and say, I really want to know about you. Tell me why you've brought this birth plan, and tell me why it is that you don't want us to do these certain things, and why you think we sometimes need to. But yeah, I think the best clinicians are the ones who are able to reflect on that relationship with a patient and how important it is.
Absolutely. Marian, what advice would you offer to aspiring medical professionals who may be facing challenges or uncertainties in their career paths?
Yeah, this is a great question. I probably should have prepared for this. So I think my biggest tips would be, don't be afraid to try something new. I think it's important to remember that once, let's say you get into medical school, you've gotten into a certain profession, you have that license suddenly to be able to say, I'm going to learn. It's okay if I make mistakes. It's okay if I don't know how to do something, but I want to learn. I've got that license to say I'm a student, and there's no expectations on my part, but take up those opportunities, because you'll regret it later if you don't. And probably the other probably two, I'm going to say two more. One is, know your threshold for burnout. Know what your personal sort of red flags are from your own psyche and from your own body to say you need to step back now. And that could be that other people are noticing it before you. And my husband's great at this. He'll be the one to say, you're sleeping more than usual. You're actually complaining about work a lot more than usual. And, that will be my signal to say, actually, I need to step back. I need to say no to more things than I usually do. And the other one is, make sure that you stay true to who you are, because in a stressful environment, it's very easy to lose focus of the kind of person that you are and what's important to you. I was, probably one of the times when I reached that line of burnout, I was surrounded by people who were constantly giving me the impression that I wasn't worthy, that I shouldn't be there. And it's important to, acknowledge that actually, I remember when I wrote a reflection last year to say, this is the kind of doctor that I want to become. I'm suddenly surrounded with people who are not that person, who are actually not building me up. So stay true to who you are. Write it down if you need to. Keep record of the positive feedbacks and the positive things that people have told you before, and stay true to it, because you don't want to become a different person, and you don't want to let this stressful environment change you.
And Marian, I think you've listed 3 things that can actually be applied no matter what industry that you're in. Take opportunities and take calculated risks. Don't limit yourself. Continue being authentic and true to yourself, and know your limits. And when you know your limits, that's a massive, massive strength, because I think that across any industry is going to help any individual be able to push themselves and grow as an individual, not lose themselves, and then be able to enjoy the journey, because that's all it's about, right? I think if we keep pushing and breaking, we become very resentful to the industry that we're in. So I can appreciate that the 3 things are pivotal in no matter what industry that one person is trying to navigate through.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. I think, remember that, if you are contributing to the negativity that's in the world, is that actually what you wanted? Is that what you set out in your career to achieve? No, it isn't. So take a step back, go back to, finding out what's true to you, what's important to you, and what your true self is, and go back to that, because you don't want to contribute to the negative. You want to be part of the positive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Marian, how do you balance your diverse medical practice with your personal life and self-care?
Very poorly. I think if I was honest, very poorly.
I'm a great preacher, but sometimes I don't take my own advice. Let's be real. That's the reality.
Yeah, there's definitely no hiding that. I think there's a lot of people that are like, oh my gosh, how do you do it? You're a mom and a wife, and you're on these like national boards and you're an examiner and you mentor students and you're also a clinician. And I balance it poorly. And there's some weeks that are worse than others. There's, it's okay to acknowledge that, yes, there are parts of my life that I can't juggle really well all at the same time, and something has to give at some point. And that's okay. I think people recognize, yes, I'm actually very good at staying on time when I'm working at in general practice. But that comes at great cost when I get home, because there's all these things that I will say, look, I need to go back and do this. And my kids know that my 3-year-old, this is probably really bad to admit, but my 3-year-old, as soon as I come home, if she sees me wearing scrubs, she'll be like, Mum, take that off. She knows that that's work. And even my husband, like we talked about how I've got to change my phone ringtone every once in a while, because we developed a bit of PTSD with one ringtone. When that rings in the middle of the night, that's Mum's got to go. Yeah. So I think it's hard to juggle everything. But something that a mentor once told me is, in life you're juggling a series of balls. There's some that are made of rubber that can bounce if you drop them, and there are some that are made of glass that will shatter and you can't get them back. So try to remember that. It's difficult to do, but things like work, things like career progression, they're the rubber balls. They can bounce back if you drop them. It's okay to take some time off and say no to things, but there are other things that won't. I'm not going to get that time back with my 3-year-old. And, yes, I do hope that in my kids I'm instilling that, that sense of work ethic, but at the same time I don't want to be an absent parent. So remember which balls won't bounce back if you drop them.
Yeah, and it's important to actually take a moment to reflect on what they are in your life, when it comes to your own mental wellness or physical health. That in itself is definitely a glass ball, I know for me. Then it's, my family and friends. Those are, non-negotiables that they take priority over anything. And then everything else that comes after it. But it's so easy for us to put a lot of effort and energy into some of the things that are going to be the ones that bounce, and realize that we're actually about to drop the things that are really, truly important to us. And I think the value of what makes us whole is so important to be able to distinguish early in life. And I do know that for some people, their career and their journey in that space is very, very much enmeshed with their identity. And there's nothing wrong with that if it brings you so much joy and accomplishment. That's fantastic. And it's also just important to not lose yourself in something that does need us if we're not spending the time on the things that are truly important for us to actually effectively work to the level that we know we are capable of in the domains that we might be bouncing with, rather than the glass shattering.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, just reflect on what would happen if I ignore more calls from my partner who's been wonderful and supported me through all of this. This is so much more important than me, missing a meeting at work. I mean, that's something that I can easily regain. But if I was to lose, family, or lose, my parents, siblings, my relationship with my husband, my children, all of that trumps everything.
And how is it being a mother in and around having to juggle all the balls of being in the medical industry?
That's hard. It's hard. And I think even, when we first got married, I, very, very much openly told my husband that, these decisions of whether we're going to bring new life into the world are things that I never actually contemplated I would do, because I knew it would be hard. But obviously now we've got 2 beautiful children, and I know that they're going to contribute to this world positively, and that means everything. So it's hard. It's really difficult. It's probably more difficult than any of the other sort of things that I've accomplished through life. Having children is tough, and it brings great reward.
And that's a testament to you as a parent, I think, and also a testament to who your parents were, where they were able to teach you what it is to be hardworking and caring and nurturing and supportive. But also, your positivity and your ability to connect with gratitude in itself is definitely going to be something that then gets passed on to them.
I hope so.
Marian, how do you practice gratitude and positivity on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. So probably from a day-to-day basis, I don't like to talk about my faith much because I know it's not something that everyone shares, but I think, taking the time to go back to those those very distinct moments in my life where I was gifted with something that I didn't work for. I think if you go back and you keep this little, locked box in your mind of the times in your life where things could have gone very differently, but you dodged a bullet, or could have been quite literally, where you've been able to get through a situation that could have been so much worse. That's an important box to be able to tap into when you need to. And yeah, being able to just take a step back in some moments where, someone's shattered your confidence or someone's shattered your feelings of, am I actually meant to be here? And you go back to that box and you say, yes, I was totally meant for this because I shouldn't have lived that day, or I shouldn't have been able to parent this child. I think there's distinct things that I can tap into that box for when I'm having a difficult day and say, yes, I am meant to be here. I don't care what that person said or what happened today, because those moments prove it.
Absolutely. And it's such a beautiful way of being able to acknowledge moments that we forget. They are fleeting, and being able to actively pinpoint those and store them somewhere where you can revisit is so important, because we're not here promoting toxic positivity, but we're also not trying to exacerbate the negativity more than it needs to, where it completely derails every positive experience you've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And it's through those moments of reflection that we're able to bring the emotion to our present moment, because that's one thing we are completely in control of, is our inner world and how we put meaning and reactions to things. And the more we practice to be able to shift through the emotions at any given time, the more we realize we can completely change our reality in the moment. Even though we can't control the things that are happening out there, we might actually be able to, not might, but we can learn how to be able to control the things in here. And that's a beautiful way of being able to tap into moments that may have been fleeting in the past, but are so pivotal to keeping ourselves in that state of light and positivity and motivation in overcoming challenges that get thrown in our way. And they will. That's life, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's that, there's a quote that I always go back to where, they said something like, if you have enemies, or, if you've gone through difficulty, great, because that means that you've worked hard for something that you care about enough to have developed that, that opposition to what you're going through. It's actually a really good sign. If you failed something, that means that you got out of bed in the morning and actually, work towards something that means something to you. This is huge. It's really, really positive. So take those setbacks. It's okay if someone says no, or a door closes, or you do have a setback, because it means that you're working towards something, and it doesn't mean you should stop.
Absolutely. Marian, you mentioned that you had at least one episode of a burnout. What was that like for you, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, so yes, there was a time in my life where, I was surrounded with people that I didn't want to become, and I almost left medicine. I think identifying that, I was becoming a person that I wasn't proud of, and that I was spiraling was really important, because, suddenly I stepped back and said, actually, I need to just get out of this. And I actually took a year off. I took a sabbatical from medicine, and went back to, I was working in medical administration before I did medicine, and I went back to that. And, I was gifted again with this opportunity that I was given that was very positive, that I hadn't, there wasn't anything that I'd prepared for it to be that positive, but found some mentors who actually did the exact opposite and built me up, and regained that confidence. It took probably a good 6 months, but regained that confidence to be able to go back and say, actually, I can do this, and I'm totally worthy. So yeah, I think you just need to remember that there are times where you're going to be depleted and you need to recharge. Don't keep going, because it will end very badly. But if you identify that and say, I need to stop and I need to recharge now, those things can wait. It's probably one of those rubber balls that will bounce back. So let it drop, come back to it, because pushing through is harmful and it's not worth it.
As a mother, how do you communicate that to your children?
Yeah, I think I probably haven't really thought about this before. I think as a mum, you try and impart some of the things that you've learned along the way. And, when a child is going through something, I think it's very different to how we process it as an adult. Children don't have the insight to say that, that child was really mean to me and now I feel bad. And, to be able to reverse that and say, look, I've got all of this experience through life and I am telling you, trust me on this. These things are not as bad as you think they are at the moment. You are worthy. You've got a family that loves you. We planned you. We've sacrificed a lot because we love you so much. Don't let this stop you. I want you to, to reach your potential and to be able to achieve all of the wonderful things that I know that you will. Just trust me on this. Even if that kid told you that, you're stupid or you're ugly or whatever they say to your child, that doesn't mean anything. You've got so much more ahead of you in your life. This isn't actually going to be part of your journey at all. It's just going to be so insignificant. And if anything, it's going to make you the child who is kind because you know what it's like to be hurt.
Absolutely. And it's such a beautiful way of you putting that together. I regularly encourage my clients to even practice talking to themselves like that. I do a lot of inner child work through schema therapy with my clients, and the way that you were able to explain something and nurture your own children in being able to then tap into aspects of themselves that are actually really worthy and lovable. That's exactly what we can also practice as adults when we find and lose our way, especially when we have very, very negative and harsh inner critics doubting us, pulling us down, ripping all our efforts apart and convincing us that we are unworthy or unlovable. So I think the way that you even put that together, whether you are a parent speaking to a child or you're an adult trying to tap into your own self-talk and self-nurturance, I think that's universal across the board.
That's so profound. Thank you.
Of course. Tell me a little bit about looking back at your early career, Marian. What are some key lessons you've learned that you wish you would have known earlier?
I think that if I was to go back to early career, I'm probably still a little bit early career. I graduated 8 years ago. But if I was to go back to, let's say, first or second year, I think I would say, well done for doing what you did. Well done for getting to that step. And do remember that, that you stayed true to who you wanted to become. You've become the doctor that you wanted to be, and you've helped so many people. So, be, I guess, a little bit, almost in a way, a bit proud of yourself because, you've gone through this when, you didn't think that you would. A few years ago when I was going through medical school, that's when I hit that line of burnout and couldn't continue, but you got through, and well done for doing the things that you did, because otherwise, the world of medicine would have missed out on the things that you've been able to do.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Marian, absolutely phenomenal. Where do you see yourself? You just said you're in your early career, 8 years in.
Yeah.
Post-graduation. Where do you see yourself going from here on in? Will medicine be something that you will very much spend a lot of your life in, or are there plans to navigate, to different areas, or anything that really resonates with you that you're wanting to explore?
I think I'm the kind of person who loves to set really unrealistic expectations and goals, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you're preaching to the choir.
Every successful person does this, right?
Yes.
But yeah, I think I would love to be in a position where I can make decisions for the things about the healthcare system that is not working at the moment. And I would love to be able to, you know, one of the things that I think I've been quite vocal on social media about this, but one of the things that I think forms a lot of the moral injury for healthcare workers and probably a lot of people is that you come into contact with someone and, I know that you need to see this specialist within a couple of weeks because you are dying and I've got your diagnosis. But due to transport constraints, due to money, due to, waiting times, due to an inefficient system, I can't get you that. And that is probably the majority or the worst of the moral injury that a lot of us get. And yes, one day I don't know whether I'm going to go into politics. I'm not sure I've got a thick enough skin for that yet, but one day I'm going to be someone who makes those decisions and can forge pathways that make our healthcare system better, especially for rural people, because your health outcomes shouldn't be determined by where you live. So yeah, I think that's probably one of my goals in life. Who knows if I'll get there, and it doesn't matter if I don't, because I know that there's a lot of other smaller things, low-hanging fruit that I'll be able to get for people, and that's good enough in itself.
I think when we all come to a point in our life that we want to be in service or for service of other people, giving ourselves to some level freely for the care of others, the benefit of others, that in itself is so fulfilling, irrespective of whether that's done in a voluntary way or in a paid way, like in a salaried way. In whatever way, you're still there wanting to provide something better for the human race as a community. And that in itself is just amazing. And I think it ties into what we spoke about before of really connecting with humans on that human level, being of value and service to others, making sure that you treat every experience with the profound care and nurturance and kindness, because it doesn't take a lot to be kind. And I think giving individuals the opportunity to tap into authentic parts of you, for them to be able to let their authentic part come to the surface, create such a bond that allows a profound change to happen, even in the tiniest, lowest of ways, irrespective of whether the higher end things are able to be reached or not reached. So even you having these goals and having these wants to be able to, on a profound way, shift things for individuals, that is amazing. And I think it's, a testament to who you are and your strength in being able to develop and go through what you've been through and keep at giving to people wholeheartedly. That is just so heart-filling and warm. And I have no doubt that, in itself, you're going to be someone that, we're going to be in the background just clapping, because
Thank you.
There's just something about you, and the desire and passion that you have to get there is very much something that is not going to stop you.
Right back at you. I think, Claudia, the things that you achieve with your clients and with your patients, I think it's pretty amazing. It's incredible to think that, you've changed so many lives by just being able to build them up. And that's incredible. You've got to pat yourself on the back, and you've got to, take those wins, because that's huge. It's amazing how much positivity I'm sure you've already added to this world.
Oh, you're going to make me cry.
Virtual hugs.
Oh, yeah. Likewise, virtual hugs. Is there anything that I haven't asked about that is really important for you to share with our community and those that are listening?
Yeah, I think, the people that I really want to sort of receive these messages are probably the ones who, might be from an underprivileged background, might be from a house that can't afford much, who think that they're not good enough to become doctors, or think that they're, not good enough to parent, or not good enough to find that partner, pursue that person. I think the thing that I really want you to know is if you are going to be doing this with positive intentions, you can do this. Look, I'm someone who's come from, very modest upbringing, a, third world country, first doctor in the family, this, someone who very much shouldn't be in the position that I'm in. But if you're in a country where these opportunities are available, don't doubt yourself because you're probably the only thing that's holding yourself back. Go for it, because if you already feel like you're not worthy or you're not good enough, chances are you're going to be the best at this job, better than anyone else who's been handed those things on a silver plate. Actually, you coming from a diverse background and from, an upbringing that's not as shiny as other people, actually you need to do this job because the world needs it.
Absolutely. And that is so beautiful to be able to try and instill into individuals and normalize that it's okay that you feel that way. It's not unusual. And it also means that you're going to be great at something because it's going to be something that you actually really love and care and want to thrive in.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And that's another thing, I think, from what you've mentioned around individuals who might not be able to think because of their backgrounds, whether it's due to being in lower socioeconomic kind of communities or backgrounds. There is still so many opportunity if you really tap into that part of you that wants to create change for yourself at the very minimum. And I guess that's why I kind of started to get into more of the podcasting and YouTubing, because I want to actually not just give value to my clients that come see me privately. I want to be sharing all of that to empower people to be able to then create that change, because I think it's so important for us to, like I mentioned before, be of value and service and care, and not have barriers for people that they then feel limited by. And through that, they will then empower themselves to make those changes in whatever direction that they want to go in their life.
Absolutely. Propagate that. I think, the beauty of social media is that we can reach so many more people this way. And we can break those molds, those people who have the glass ceilings, who have the imposter syndrome, who are just, sitting in their own mind going, I can't do this. Look at how terrible my past is. Look at how, how my family looks look at how my home looks. I can't do this. We can break those barriers and, reach these places with social media and, with different platforms, because it's important. We need people in high positions who have gone through loss, who've gone through pain, who need to, bring other people up, because you're the best person for the job.
Because there'll be a completely different level of empathy and connection through your own lived experience. You'll be able to step into the heartache that somebody else is experiencing and be able to connect with them on that level.
Yeah.
And even if you don't have that heartache, you're still able to be empathic and caring. But I think it takes, a person who has been through pain and hurt to be able to step into such an empathic, vulnerable place to hold that space to somebody else in just an understanding way that's really unique to that experience.
Exactly. Yeah, you've gone through it for a reason. Maybe you're going to be the next person who, makes a real difference in the space of domestic violence or, or Indigenous health, or, those things have happened for a reason. This is your calling. Go for it.
Absolutely. Marian, thank you so much for sharing your story, your experiences, and completely being just a ball of light that just continues to, connect with gratitude and positivity through your challenges. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you have with us today.
Thank you. And likewise, Claudia, thank you for the amazing work that you're doing. Don't stop. It's amazing to see.
Thank you. And just to share with our community, is there any way that our listeners and our community can connect with you on socials?
Yep. So I am on Instagram and I'm on Twitter, or X as it's called now. So my handle on Instagram is Dr. Marian Dover, and on Twitter or X it's @Dover Marian. So yep, do find me. I've got all my DMs open. Happy to be contacted anytime.
Again, thank you so very much. Marian, it was a pleasure. Welcome to our first episode together on the Self Reflections podcast, and I cannot wait to circle back in future episodes together.
Amazing. Thank you.
As we reflect on the conversations with Dr. Marian Dover, we're left with a profound sense of gratitude for her generosity in sharing her journey with us. From her humble beginnings to her diverse medical practice, Dr. Dover's story is a testament to the transformative power of perseverance, compassion, and self-reflection. We've gained invaluable insights into the challenges and triumphs of a career in medicine, as well as practical strategies for maintaining well-being and preventing burnout. Dr. Dover's commitment to self-care and her unwavering dedication to her patients serve as an inspiration to us all. Thank you to her, and thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey of self-reflection. Be sure to subscribe for more inspiring conversations, and until next time, remember to prioritize self-care and gratitude in your own journey of self-discovery. Thank you for tuning into the Self Reflections podcast. I'm your host, Claudia Geber. Until next time, take care.